This video was sponsored by Squarespace. Stick around until the end of the video to learn more about a special deal they're making available through my channel. I've spoken at length about how it's such a mistake that most of us overlook training in the rotational plane. It can lead to stiff, awkward movement. It can make us more likely to get injured. It can reduce our power, and eventually it can lead to injury. But actually, most of us move even less in the frontal plane, that side-to-side movement. We squat and we press and we lunge forwards and up and down, but we never step side to side or load one side of the body more than the other. Even though any lifting we do in the real world inevitably is going to be uneven. Even though rapidly changing direction and cutting from side to side is a huge part of any sport. As a result, even the strongest lifters are often weak and fragile when the load isn't symmetrical. Many of us feel pain in one side of our lower back, or walk with a stiff and awkward gait, and this is because our bodies have become asymmetrical. The solution? Train the Quadratus Lumborum. So the Quadratus Lumborum, or QL muscle to you, connects the hips to the lower spine and bottom rib. Specifically, it originates from the iliac crest and iliolumbar ligament and inserts at the L1 to L4 transverse processes and the 12th rib. Like the psoas, then, the QL acts as a crucial junction that literally connects the upper body and the lower body together. When it's functioning properly, the QL provides strength and stability for real-world performance, as well as explosive athleticism. When it's not working as it should, it can lead to back pain, imbalance, and stiff, awkward movement. In particular, the QL is a crucial player when it comes to spinal stability. If you're experiencing lower back pain, especially if it's more on one side, there's a good likelihood that the QL muscle is responsible. Essentially, it pulls the pelvis and the lower back together, creating less space for the nerves to travel through. Commonly, extra tightness on one side can then lead to increased irritation on that side. So if you have lower back pain, and you feel it more on one side than the other, then looking into the QL is a very good idea. Of course, excess tightness on just one side can also contribute to scoliosis, meaning that the spine doesn't sit straight, and this can even be visible to the naked eye when viewed from behind. This can come from lifestyle habits, something as simple as always sitting with the same leg crossed across your lap in the same direction, or leaning more on one elbow. These minor postural imbalances can build up and compound over time until we begin experiencing pain and restricted movement all the time. Essentially, you get like frozen in that position. In many ways, you could even consider the QL to be the symmetry muscle, because it helps keep your core aligned in the frontal plane and to stabilize laterally under asymmetric loads, keeping you symmetrical, balanced. Imbalance in the QL leads to imbalanced movement. It's as simple as that. But it also does a lot more than that too. The QL muscle is also responsible for hiking the hips, raising them on one side. And we need to do this in order to walk or run, so imbalance or dysfunction of the hips can negatively impact your gait, making you more likely to trip and fall, or simply making you a slow and stiff runner. Extra strength and stability in the QL helps you to raise the legs more as you run, covering more ground with explosive strides and avoiding obstacles. It will literally give you more spring in your step. It also, of course, plays a massive role when throwing kicks, so it should be a core part of any martial artist's training. The QL even helps you to breathe because it pulls down on the 12th rib, stabilizing it during inhalation and helping to expel air during exhalation. The QL also plays a significant, though often overlooked role in rotational movement, assisting the obliques when it comes to twisting the body. Anyone who's watched my channel before will know just how important this is for all human movement. Everything from punching, to wrestling, to running, to throwing involves some element of rotational movement, and yet so few people train it at the gym. But not you, because you're a smarty pants, and you watch the Bioneer. The bad news is that tightness, weakness, imbalance in the QL are extremely common among the modern population, and there's a good chance you're dealing with tight and uneven QL muscles right now. As mentioned, this is because so few people actively train or stretch the QL, they're so interested in moving up and down, forwards and backwards, and it's because we spend so long sitting or standing in one place, and often that leads to us picking up bad habits like leaning on one side for comfort. Now, the problem with a lot of the advice you're going to hear, with a lot of the corrective exercises people give, is that they're boring and fiddly, and they only offer a small stimulus. Performing hundreds of stretches and strengthening exercises with bands for every single supporting muscle is time-consuming and often just leads to more issues as you inevitably find new areas that need training. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to train your anterior tibialis, your multifidus, your rotators, your obliques, your serratus, your QL, your psoas, all of these things. I believe that if a muscle is important for functional performance, we should be able to train it functionally. For example, a great option is just to do your shoulder press but just on one side, unilaterally. Instead of doing a shoulder press, dumbbell press with 2, do it with just 1, and now you're stabilizing yourself in that lateral plane. You can still get a plenty good stimulus for the shoulders, you know, maybe slightly less, but you're not going to fail so quick that you can't get a good pump on your shoulders. And again, what's the point of having really strong shoulders if you can only use them in this really strict situation? Basically then, we're training the symmetry muscles by training asymmetrically and forcing our body to correct that. Sandbag training can be just as effective. When you lift the sandbag, chances are that you'll be a little off center and some of the sand will move inside, exacerbating that. This is then going to load that side more than the other, again causing you to have to brace to correct that. But at the same time, you'll probably then shoulder the bag onto one side. That's one of the great things about sandbag training. When I started, I thought, oh no, I'm going to put my back out. It's actually quite the opposite. Sandbag training, it turns out, is like medicine for your back, because you're training all of those supporting muscles, because you're using everything instead of being locked in place. It's almost like a massage, as absurd as it sounds. A quick tip for this kind of training is to start on your non-dominant side. So for most people, that's going to be shouldering onto your left side. That way, you're not going to be exacerbating any imbalances you already have. If you want to try something that's more directly targeted at training the QL, you can try a suitcase carry. This is basically a loaded carry, a farmer's walk, but you're only loading one side. So pick up a kettlebell, a dumbbell, whatever it is, in just one hand, and then go for a walk for time. This way, again, it's going to force you to brace yourself to correct that, so you're not bending to one side whilst you walk, and you're going to have to focus on moving the hips properly at the same time. This is a classic anti-lateral flexion movement, and as I've spoken before, the main job of most muscles isn't to move the body, but to resist movement, to keep you neutral. Another great option if you have time for more specific moves is the old-time strongman move, the bent press, which is just a brilliant exercise for opening the shoulders, building that core stability. Then there's the gladiator deadlifts that Wild Hunt conditioning talks about. Here you deadlift a single dumbbell or kettlebell from the ground, positioned next to you, with the opposite arm. That way you're also getting a nice rotation at the same time, moving the rib cage independently of the pelvis. The other reason that movements like this work so well is that they work the QL in an integrative rather than isolated manner. See, the QL is a reactive stabilizer. In other words, very often we're not consciously flexing the QL muscle, but it's working in response to changes in your position or in the resistance to reflexively contract and keep you nice and stable. All these things will make your strength so much more adaptable and functional, so that you can lift awkward objects, so that you can react to unexpected forces. This is the real world power that so few people train. There are also a few exercises that will work the hips in this manner. Hill sprints require you to raise each leg higher than you would normally during sprints, training that hip hike on both sides whilst keeping the torso nice and steady. Step ups do this really well too, especially on a higher platform and using a slow controlled descent where you'll be challenging the QL under load. And if you really want to target the QL more directly, you can do so with things like the side plank, elevated side plank crunches, and the latter is great at challenging the QL in that stretched position. You get really nice and deep before pushing yourself back. For a really good mobility movement, I highly recommend the crab reach. This will stretch the QL muscle, but even more because as well as bending sideways, you're also rotating the hips, and this reinforces the rib-pelvis dissociation that you want, allowing you to move the torso more freely and generate more power as a result. Alternatively, you've got things like the gate pose from yoga. Anything where you're bending laterally will do the job nicely. That's a lot of stuff I just threw at you, but you don't need to do all of it. My recommendation is to start training with more unilateral movements. Throw in something like the suitcase carries or bent press on top, and then add a nice side bend to your mobility drills. Do all this and you might find you start to feel stronger, more mobile, and more explosive. Of course, if you're looking for a guided program with that kind of varied movement built in, then you might enjoy my ebook and training program, Super Functional Training 2.0. The whole point of that is to build comprehensive strength and performance, so you'll build strength, mobility, stability, endurance and more in one program, and you'll train everything from your QL to your psoas to your anterior tibialis, leaving no stone unturned. But it's simple, you don't need any special equipment, and it can adapt to any ability level. I'll put a link to that in the description down below. But either way guys, thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. This video was sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace is a website building platform that makes it extremely easy to get your own website up and running, and it takes just minutes. Simply choose a ready-made template and then customize it to your heart's content, or use their AI tools to build something bespoke. No coding skills required either way. What you're left with is a website that looks beautiful and modern and that works great on any device. It gives you that peace of mind knowing that your website is powered by the same tool that powers many of the biggest websites on the net. You'll then be able to add all the features you could need, things like search engine optimization to help you get your website to show up in Google searches, things like e-commerce for selling products online or appointment scheduling so that you can book clients. There's a fully integrated commenting system with threaded comments, replies and likes, advanced analytics, and so much more. If you want to learn more, then go to squarespace.com, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Bioneer to get 10% off your first domain or website. Thanks so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Thanks to you guys especially for sticking around till the end, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.